Right. Hi, everybody. Okay, Floss. Going to have a video today. We're going to do a quick wait for a couple of people, see if somebody checks in. Go to YouTube, don't I? One day I will. I'm going to put all this up on YouTube. We'll test it out with you people first. So we're going to have a video because I heard that it's voting day tomorrow. Oh. Yeah. It's voting day tomorrow. So I wanted to put out this little video so everybody knows who they're voting for. Now, you can all vote for who you want, but you have the right to know the truth about the people that you're voting for. It's all these six secrets, isn't it? The secret societies and the secret parliaments where they make laws. You know, they made a law in 1999, I think, the inserted laws that they insert in the middle of the night when we're not looking, and they inserted a law that things that go on in Parliament, you're not allowed to go out and speak about it in public. You have to keep quiet, even if you disagree. If you disagree with what the opposition is doing or saying in Parliament, by their law that they inserted, you can't go out and say anything about it. And this is the thing where a lot of these smaller parties, you know, it's funny, isn't it? These smaller parties like Winston Peters, they get blamed for a lot of stuff. I'm going to try not to swear, but I probably won't get through it without swearing. They get blamed for a lot of stuff, don't they? And the thing is that they're not allowed to say anything, even if they wanted to. He does try, I'm sure. But anyway, this video here is a special video. And this is a video because I know that there are a lot of Muslims out there. The Muslims. Now, I know a lot of Muslim people and they're lovely. And you can't say that this one's bad, this one's good. There's a lot of lovely Muslims, moderate Muslims, that have a strong faith and they don't believe in all this crap that's going on as well. But anyway, I noticed that there's a lot of Muslims that are voting for Jacinda Ardern because they're voting for Golritz Garaman, who's a foreigner in our Parliament. But anyway, I just want all the Muslims and all the church groups and all the people of New Zealand, the people of Australia as well, to know who you're voting for. Who you're voting for. Now, I'm going to have to read because I had to put this together very quickly today. So I didn't have much time, so I'm going to have to read from my notes here quite a bit. Okay, but I'll try and read it so that you can see my face. So here's the truth about who you're voting for when you vote for Jacinda Ardern. Listen up, all the Muslims. You're voting for the two houses of Israel. Yes, she's a Mormon. She says she's not. But I'm going to show you what she says and what she does. Can it be trusted? Now, the Mormons represent, well, Latter-day Saints. Latter-day Saints is what they're called. You know, they change, oh, got mosquitoes. They change their names. So they changed it from Mormons, because remember the Mormons that used to come knocking on the door? And we didn't let them in because we knew if we let them in, they'd be there for a long time, talking about things that converting us to be something that we don't want to be. Well, some people want to be. If you want to be, well, you can be. Anyway, Jacinda Ardern, here's the first information that you want to know. She is the direct descendant, the direct descendant of King Alfred the Great. Now, his Queen Elizabeth is in the line of great grandchildren. She's the 32nd in great 32 greats, and then Queen Elizabeth. So the Ardern's, Ross Ardern, her father is Ross Ardern, and he is a direct descendant of King Alfred. Now that's interesting, isn't it? Now, if we want to know about her father, Ross Ardern, he was a policeman in New Zealand, and her uncle is Ian Ardern. We're going to be talking about Ross Ardern and Ian Ardern. It's all about keeping it in the family, ruling entire countries in one family. Now, Ross Ardern was appointed, I'm going to get my stick people. Ross Ardern was appointed as the Commissioner of Police by, there she is again, Helen Clark, who was a very good friend of Galwit's government. So Helen Clark appointed him in 2005. Now remember that 2005. 2005 is the year when Helen Clark and her previous people changed the New Zealand 1993 Electoral Act to allow foreigners to govern in New Zealand Parliament. She changed the Constitution through the Electoral Act. And so in 2005, she appointed Ross Ardern to be the Commissioner of Police to NIUE, N-I-U-E. Now, NIUE is one of the protectorates of they're New Zealand citizens. Now, all the Niueans, they're New Zealand citizens, and they are under the protection of the Queen. Now, we, New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, were sneakily taken out of the protection of the Queen, and now we're independent, but NIUE, they're still under the protection of the Queen because they refused to leave, but we didn't know what was going on, but they did. So in 2009, Ross Ardern, to 2013, he moved to be the liaison officer to Samoa. Who do we know in Samoa? That's in New Zealand Parliament. Alpito Seo. Alpito William Seo is a Samoan chief. A Samoan chief in New Zealand Parliament. Why? You'll find out later why we've got a Samoan chief in New Zealand Parliament, but that's going to come up later. Keep listening, Muslims, because you're going to get the aha moment soon. Just follow me. So 2009 to 2013, Ross Ardern was the liaison officer to Samoa, and he worked between the two islands, between NIUE and Samoa. It was getting around a bit, wasn't it? In 2018, Ross Ardern became the High Commissioner to NIUE. So he's gone up, that's very high at the top. And then in 2018, he was appointed to be the administrator of Tokelau. Now, Tokelau Tokalawians, I think they're called, they're also New Zealand citizens. And so they're under, although they've had a constitution to say that they will not follow our laws. And interestingly enough, in Niuean law, their constitution and Tokelauan constitution and the Cook Island constitution, it's illegal to have abortions. Unlike our constitution, where they're going to be aborting babies up to full term. In their constitution, it's illegal for foreigners to work in their parliament unless they're a New Zealand-born citizen. And in our parliament, through Helen Clark, they can have foreigners working in our parliament, and you're going to see why. The big picture, I'm going to reveal the big picture of these freaks and retards that are here to take over New Zealand. Listen up, Maori, too. You all better listen up, and the Muslims. So that's Ross Ardern. So he's in control of Tokelau, he's in control of Niue, he's over there in Samoa. Now, Ian Ardern, so we've got Jacinda Ardern in the New Zealand Parliament. She's ordering around New Zealand with all of her followers. And then we've got, and her followers, and then we've got Ross Ardern. He's in control of Tokelau and Niue. I'm not sure who's in control of the Cook Islands, but I'll investigate it. But then we've got Ian Ardern. Now, Ross Ardern is a Latter-day Saint elder, and Ross Ardern, he is a practicing member of the Latter-day Saints or the Mormons. Now, Ross Ardern's brother is Jacinda's uncle, and they call them this, an area authority. They call them Authority 70s. And I'll try and explain a little bit about it. But he is an authority, and they have these things called Koras. And I'll explain about the Koras later. So he is the leader of the 8th Kora that was just established I'll tell you later. So it was recently established. The Koras were all started to be established in 1997. Now, Ian Ardern, he is the principal of the Pacific Church Education. So he's in charge of all of the Pacifica education. Well, if you want to control the masses, you've got to get them while they're young. Get their kids before they're 7 years old, and you'll own them for life. So he's managing all the Pacifica education. But not only that, now he's based in Samoa. So we've got Jacinda in New Zealand, we've got Ross in Tokelau, Niue, probably the Cook Islands, and we've got Ian over there in Samoa controlling all of that. Okay, and he's also the seminary coordinator for the church in the educational system of New Zealand. Well, do you know what's interesting? That I was telling you last week in the video. Al Pito CEO he's just been given $10 million of our money. Our money. Don't even worry about the mosques being built. There are no mosques going to be built. Not under their watch, there isn't. They're going to be building Latter-day Saint and Mormon churches all over New Zealand. And we, New Zealanders, Muslims, Maori, whoever you are, we are going to be paying for it. Now along with every church comes a school. That's what he's done in Auckland. He set up all these churches, and now he's set up all these Pacific Islander schools, all paid for by us. Now they're taking our best native English-speaking teachers and putting them in those Pacific Island schools that they've set up that are all managed by the Church of Ian Ardern. You see where this is going? We're paying for them to take over our country. Now he says he's going to take over New Zealand and then the world. She's going to go up against Australia and get all of the refugees out of the refugee camps there. So then, now, I'm going to tell you a bit about this Mormon church. So these are some of their beliefs. Have I called them freaks yet? I'll just call them freaks again. I mean, they are freaks. If you really want to take over the world, you're a freak. That's not inclusive. That's exclusive. When you want to take over the world and set up schools and churches and take over an entire country, that's not inclusive. That's exclusive. And, you know, the world needs a variety of religions in schools. But keep it out of schools, to be honest. So their plan is to build a communalistic, communist, in other words, American Zion. The Americans, and I'll show you later, the Americans and the Chinese and the Pacific Islanders are taking over our countries, New Zealand and Australia. Now, Australia, don't even think that they're not there. They've got, oh, we'll get to you soon. Just wait a minute. Get to you all. So, the Mormon church belief, it belongs to the Jews and the Mormons. And they are called the two houses of Israel. Listen up, Muslims. When you're voting for Jacinda Ardern, what you're voting for is to set up the two houses of Israel in the country of New Zealand that you've come to be able to practice your faith peacefully. Now listen up to that. The Mormons, the focus, here's their focus. It's on a united monarchy. Now we've got we used to have the Queen of the monarchy as our monarchy, but here's their monarchy, the United Monarchy of Israel. In New Zealand, we follow the King James Bible. Now, you can be Jew if you want, be Muslim if you want, nothing wrong with that. But I tell you, in New Zealand, we follow the King James Bible, and that's what was in that. I tell you, that is in the treaty, and we were promised that. That's what we would follow, and the Queen in the 1852 had protections, and she said that's the Bible that we would follow. And part of her protections was that she protected the Maori and she protected us as well from these devious characters that would set up their churches throughout our country and rule us and force us to abort our babies, make all our kids into homosexuals, take the kids away from their parents. Do you see where they're going? They're going to kill all of us. We're all going to be got out. I mean, if all our kids are gay, well, they're not going to breed, are they? If our kids are aborted, well, they're not going to make more babies, are they? If our kids are taken from their parents after they've been sufficiently beaten up for long enough and put into all the gay youth camps, they're not going to form relationships and have children. Whilst they've all got their special laws, haven't they? Where their Mormons have, it's a polygamist, they're polygamists as well. They can have 6 kids to one wife, and they've got them all in their special schools that we pay for. But our kids are all going to be aborted, aren't they? The fucking freaks. I mean, they are fucking freaks when you're thinking about the babies. Like 13, almost 13,000 babies aborted in New Zealand last year. 13,000. Now that's a fucking lot. We're a small country. 13,000 aborted babies. I could accept that there would be 2,000 or 3,000 in a small country like us. 2,000 or 3,000 babies that maybe there's been an accident or there might have been a rape, but 13,000 babies in 2017. There was, I think, 17,000 babies aborted of Maori and Pākehā children, predominantly Maori and Pākehā babies of mothers that were under 20, so 19-year-olds. And the people that are advising them, well, I bet we know where they come from. I'll tell you about them later. So here you go. So the Mormon church belongs to the Jews and the Mormons, the two houses of Israel, and they believe in the united monarchy of Israel. Mormonism teaches that they are the direct descendants of the house of Israel. So all you Muslims, just think about what you're voting for tomorrow. I mean, you can vote that way if you want to. But I mean, you're cutting your own throat, aren't you? That's what you want. They call their realm, this is their realm authority, Area 70. It's outside the main body of the church. Now, outside the main body of the church, which means the leaders, and they have two high councils. One of them is one is the standing council that stays in the country, and one are the travelling council. And here's the travelling council. Now, can you see this here? If you see up here, see if I can point it to you. Now, I can't do it here. Now, up here, that is the Hawaiian Islands. And you can see them jump and jump. I can't quite see it. They jump, so they're going to hop from here, jump to here. This is Hawaii, and this is, all right, they're going to jump from Hawaii to Samoa, and then they're going to jump from Samoa here all the way over here to Sydney, Australia. Here you are, Australia. You're in the target too. And then they're going to jump from there. There's the target, Wellington, New Zealand. Yeah. Yeah. And I tell you, he knows all about hopping countries to get to New Zealand to work in our Christchurch universities, doesn't he? She knows all about the human trafficking to get them here. So that's what they're going to do. So they're going to hop. They're called the Area 70. Now, what they do is the 70 are to act in building up the church, and that's Alpito building his churches all over the small countries of New Zealand. And he's going to build the churches throughout New Zealand. They build up the church, and it's their duty to regulate all affairs to be the same in all the nations. So everything in every nation, every law in every nation. So even you Pacific Islanders, you know these laws that we've got here, eventually, they might be using you now, but eventually they're going to be creating laws for you, for every single country, it's communist, that you'll have no control over. So you should stand with us too. Now, the Area 70 are divided into 10 quorums. They call them quorums. This is only recent. Or that the quorums, which means geographical areas. The geographical areas. Now, they had 2 quorums. Quorum 1 and Quorum 2, which I assume is in America. I don't know. We have to research it some more. But in 1997, now in 1986 is when New Zealand, Australia and Canada were taken out of the governance of the Queen. And previous to that, all laws about all laws pertaining to Indigenous people and all things pertaining to their land. Before you could do anything, you had to send it to England, and it went through all their courts and all their privy councils before the Queen would sign off on it. But in 1986, and I think Canada was 1982, I think Australia was we were taken out of the British power to govern our laws, and then that opened up our countries to the corruption of these Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists and other people as well, the Freemasons. They're all after us. The enemy is all around us. It's everywhere. That's why we've got to get together, because they're all around. We're surrounded by freaks and retards that want to rule us and take away our rights. So now let's see. The third, fourth, and fifth quorums were all created. The third quorum is in Africa. Well, South Africa, where they set the South Africans, the blacks and the whites, they set them against each other. The whites are all being murdered. The land has lost its value, and the Hillary Clintons and the Bill Clintons are all over there buying up the lands from the Indigenous tribes, buying it all up, and the tribes are killing all the white people. So that was the decolonisation there. And so that's one of their quarrels. These are the people stirring the pot. Now the fourth one is in Asia, Hong Kong, all of those places. Now they're very close with China, so the way I'm seeing it is that China and America are taking over, and they're going to divide us up. Now, I'll get to that in a minute. I'm going ahead of myself. Now, the fifth quora is in Brazil, all of those areas where there are other Indigenous peoples and Indigenous lands. Indigenous lands that have been locked up for 200 years are being released, and laws are being written behind our backs to get the Indigenous lands into the hands of the Indigenous people, and then in the future out of the hands of the Indigenous people and into the hands of the freaks. There's one there. There are many. There's one. What's his name? He's an elder, Garrett W. Gong. Gong, I'm in Thailand, and Gong in Thailand means cheap. That's what it means. Gong, cheap. That's what it means. It's true. I mean, anyway, in 2004, the sixth quora was established in North America. There's a lot of lands over there as well. And then in 2005, when the New Zealand law, around about that time, the New Zealand law was changed to allow foreigners to come into Parliament. Helen Clark. In 2005, the seventh and the eighth quora were established. Now, the seventh quora or area, geographical area, is Australia and their northern territories. So, and then the eighth quora, which is Jacinda Ardern's uncle, Ian Ardern, is in charge of the eighth quora, which is New Zealand, the Pacific Islands, and the Philippines. And they call us the Pacific Realm. We're not the Commonwealth realm anymore. We're the Pacific Realm, all run by the Mormon Church and the Arderns. Jacinda, her father, her uncle, and all the brothers and sisters along there. It's kind of funny, isn't it? Now, so Ian Ardern, they call them authority. He is the authority to the 8th Kora, which is New Zealand and the Pacific Islands. Well, that's all wrapped up because we've got brother, what's his name? Brother Ross in Tokelau in Niue, and probably the Cook Islands, and then we've got brother Ian in Samoa, and then we've got sister-daughter Ardern, Jacinda in New Zealand. I just have to turn this light out because it's making noise, but I think it might be dark, but don't worry. Just wait 1 minute. Oh. Okay. Can you see me? Oh, yes, you can. All right. So anyway, so Ian Ardern, have to wrap this up, don't I? So then, so I want to tell you about where this Mormon church originated. So it originated with a guy called Joseph Smith. Now, Joseph Smith, he created the Mormon church in 1831, but it doesn't come from there because it's going to go right back further that you'll see later. It's a bit of a long video again, but you know my videos are long. Watch half and then watch the other half later. But anyway, I just have to tell you, Joseph Smith, he created it in 1831. He moved to the West planning to build a communist America's Zion of the two houses of Israel. That was his plan. And so he went off to Ohio and they kicked him out because him and his followers took over all the government and nobody was allowed to be involved in the government. So the Ohio people kicked him out. So then they went to Missouri and the Missouri people found the same thing, so they kicked them out. And then finally, he went to Nauvoo, and where the people protested, and Smith legged it down to the Carthage, Illinois, to stand trial for polygamy. Of course, they have lots of wives and lots of kids so they can outbreed us while they abort our kids and turn all the rest of our kids homosexual. So, and in there, right there, in Carthage, the people killed him right at the jailhouse, and that was the end of Joseph Smith. But however, he lives on, obviously, through Jacinda Ardern and her father and her uncle. They're all living on together to take over New Zealand. Now, what happened next? Now I can't see anything. So now, we're not finished with the Arderns. Alfred the Great he had a descendant. So he had a descendant and they started a thing called the Fabian Society. You hear about these Freemasons, but there's this one called the Fabian Society, and this is where the Mormon church came out of, from the Fabian Society that went when they went over to America on the Mayflower or whatever they went. Well, some of these guys, these Fabians, were on there, and that's when they started this Mormon church thing. They actually come from the Fabian Society or the Masons. I mean, there are many of these places, aren't they? So anyway, one of his descendants started the Fabians. Now, the Fabian Society is Jacinda Ardern and many, many, many other parliament members belong to the Fabian Society in New Zealand. Now, this Fabian Society, if you want to really know Jacinda Ardern, just listen to what she says. So here they've got this turtle. This is the symbol. It says, when I strike hard. When I strike hard. And what did she say? I went fast and I went hard. Didn't she? Yes. Well, she was striking us, the New Zealand people, to get us all locked up, get our guns away from us, and turn us into subservient people to their religion. Now, the Fabian Society has two emblems. The first one is the turtle, and it believes that they can turn a country into a communist country by slow changes. Remember that I told you they changed the constitution through 4 governments. That's like 12 years of government. They changed One law per term, until they got to the eventual law where foreigners or Mormons and Israelis from America would be, and Chinese would be able to come in and control our government. So that's what they did it over 4 terms of parliament, of prime ministers, didn't they? So the favourite, it has 2 emblems, and it derives its name from Quintus Fabius, or Q. Quintus Fabius, and he is known as a cunctator. What's a cunctator? Probably, well, am I allowed to say the C word? Probably not. See you next Tuesday. See you next Tuesday. A cunctator. C-U-N-C-T-O-R. C-U-N-C-T-A-T-O-R. A cunctator. Now, it has 2 emblems. So the first one is the tortoise, which means the slow, systematic infiltration into societies. And here's the ones from all our Muslim friends that live in New Zealand. Now, that want to live there peacefully. Now, I do not support mass immigration, but there are some people that do want to come and live, and they can be Muslims if they want. Nothing wrong with that. Well, I don't like them. It's mass immigration, which will destroy our country for all of us. We don't want mass immigration. We want immigration, but not mass immigration. So for our lovely Muslims that are living in New Zealand that like to live a peaceful life, read that. Now, the other symbol that they have is the wolf in sheep's clothing. The wolf in sheep's clothing is the symbol used by the Fabian Society that Jacinda Ardern is a member of, that shows how they infiltrate Muslim societies. Now, and here they are again. It says there, can you see there? Fabian Society, the Fabian Society. And then you can see there that they've got the wolf. Here's the wolf. Here's the wolf, and here's the sheep, and it's the wolf in sheep's clothing. So when you go to vote tomorrow, all our lovely Muslims in New Zealand and Australia as well, you need to be checking this out, all our Muslims that are living there peacefully and nicely. You want to remember this: trust no one. Now, who else have I got here? So here's the Fabian Society. And you can see here, so we've got the wolf and we've got the sheep. And here's Jacinda Ardern. And if you see here, here's the wolf. And here, all my Muslim friends, here is the sheep's clothing. You see, there's the wolf. Oh, I am the wolf. And here's her sheep clothing. But I'm just a nice little sheep coming to the Muslim mosque to visit you all. Trust no one. Read your history. There's your wolf in sheep's clothing. My stick people, I'll put a stick up their ass. That's why I call them my stick people that keep sticking it to us. We're going to stick it to them. Stick it to them. Now, well, I've lost myself now. Now, the wolf in sheep's clothing, they believe that that is the best way to infiltrate and destroy the Muslim territories. So remember that, Muslims, when you're going to vote for Jacinda Ardern tomorrow. There are other ways to get your people into New Zealand, and she's not it. For all we know, she could be one too. So when Jacinda Ardern took office, they had changed They had changed the oath. Now, we in New Zealand, Australia, and Canada, and England, we have an oath of allegiance. And the oath of allegiance, when you go into office, you swear the oath of allegiance, and you swear it on the King James Bible. And at the end of it, you say, "So help me God. I promise to swear allegiance to the Queen and to be faithful and truthful," something like that, "to the country of New Zealand. So help me God." You put your right hand on the Bible. And, you know, a lot of Western people, if we're going to lie, we don't put our hand on that Bible. I'm telling you, even the people that don't believe in God, the atheists, these people that say they don't believe in, they won't put their hand on a King James Bible and lie. They won't do it. They just know God will strike them down whether they believe in him or not. So just this oath of allegiance, well, they changed that in our constitution as well. And they changed it to be that you could make just an affirmation. You didn't have to be allegiant to God. So the Queen by the laws, oh, hey, there's Billy. Oh, I'm on the video. Anyway, so I've got to get this video done, Billy. I don't know if you can see me. Oh, wait for a minute. Okay, so anyway. Oh, okay. So anyway, you have to swear an allegiance to God. Now, in the last election, 14 ministers did not make the oath of allegiance to God. They all made an affirmation that, I promise to be good. Now, he said his oath of allegiance in Fijian language, in our New Zealand English Parliament. He said it in Fijian. We don't know what he said. He could have said, "I'm taking over New Zealand and then I'm going to take over the world," in Fijian. We don't even know what he said. But the one thing that he didn't say was, "So help me God," with his right hand on the King James Bible. He did it because he's a Mormon, isn't he? And so, but fine, huh? And then, so 14 ministers did not use the Bible to say their oath of allegiance, but 17 ministers did. Now, whilst Jacinda, but fine, huh? Turns high. But fine. Okay. Now, whilst Jacinda Ardern was in office, who do you think came to visit her all the way from America? None other than, look at him. Who remembers? Do you remember that? Poltergeist movie? And Joseph Smith, the Mormon, was coming to take all the children. He looked just like this guy, coming to take the children. That's what he's here for. He's here for our children. Now, his name is Russell M. Nelson, and he's the president of all the Mormons, and he's the one setting up these choras to take over New Zealand and the Pacific Islands, and the Philippines too, where the Catholics are in the Philippines, but I mean, there'll be the holy battle. Now, he came to Parliament, and do you know what he did? The King James Bible that they threw out of our Parliament, that we've used for hundreds of years, put there by the Queen to protect us. She threw it out of our Parliament, and Russell come to visit our Parliament, and he took the Mormon Bible and placed it in our parliament. Do you even have any understanding what that means? And so he placed it in our parliament. Now, he said, this is what he said. Here's Jacinda holding it, and it says on there, can you read it? It says on there, the Book of Mormon. And that's Jacinda Ardern's hands there, holding the Book of Mormon in our parliament. That you think that she said she's not religious. But remember, just everybody remember that she comes from the Fabian Society, and they're allowed to lie about anything to further their cause. And she said she's not religious. And there she is, holding the Mormon Bible in our parliament when they threw out the King James Bible. Don't do that to our people. Now, where am I up to? So when you're thinking about voting, I would just like to point out, when you're thinking about voting, that every single New Zealand first, I know a lot of people don't like Winston Peters, but when he goes into Parliament, he's only got 5% of the vote. And they have changed the laws that the smaller parties have to legally follow the directive of the bigger parties. So if they tell him he's got a voice in there, he's got a voice, but he hasn't got all the power. If they say to him, you've got to go, she says, you've got to go and sign that UN Pact. And she says, you've got to go and sign that UN Pact. And they're all saying that. And the Green Party here, if they're all saying that, he's got to do it. And by the law that they have written these laws, he's not allowed to say anything against it either. Now, here we see her. There's Jacinda Ardern laughing away with her Book of Mormon. There she is. And she's got it. Look at this sneaky laugh. Look at the sneaky laugh that they've... He's like... We got the Book of Mormon in the Parliament of New Zealand. We threw out the Queen. We've thrown out the Commonwealth. And we've got the Book of Mormon in the Parliament of New Zealand, an entire country. It's going to be called, New Zealand's going to be called the Pacific Ministry. And ministry, what does ministry mean? Ministry in a church means that they own the congregation. We're going to be an entire country of their freak congregation of Mormon, two houses of Israel people. Look at all the parties. I'm not saying vote for anyone, but look at all the parties, and I'm telling you, they're all full of these freaks. All of them are full of them. So I would be very careful who I voted for. But I will say that Winston Peters, New Zealand First, his party, all 17 of his members placed their right hand on the King James Bible, and they swore allegiance to God. And 14 members of her parliament refused to place their hand on the King James Bible, and they swore allegiance to no one. I would think very carefully about that, New Zealand, if I was you. Now, here they all are, sat here in Parliament. These are all Americans, you see. These are all the American Mormons. And if you look, where are we over? Over here, there, I don't know if you can see it, there is Ian Ardern. The one that's going to take New Zealand and take them out of the Commonwealth, out of the protection of the Queen, far, far away from Australia. They've split us up. Australia they put in the 7th Quora, And New Zealand, they put in the 8th Cora. I don't know where Canada is, but they're splitting us all up. Is what they're doing. We have got to be together. The Maoris, you've got to stand with us and help us. The Aborigines, you've got to stand with your Australians, not those ones in Parliament. They're all evil. But you've got to stand with us, the people. Now, here they are, outside the beat. Americans, no less. Americans, there's Ian Ardern, there's Russell Nelson, and there's all these other freaks from America, from the House of Israel in America, come, they're staking their claim, you know. Here they are in our parliament. What the hell are these people doing in our New Zealand parliament? What they're doing there? What is the Book of Mormon doing in our New Zealand parliament? We in New Zealand, under the protection of the Queen and under the protection of the Treaty of New Zealand, we were promised that all of her subjects and all of the descendants of her subjects would be guaranteed the protection of the King James Bible, and that was the religion that we were going to follow. It's a moderate religion, and most New Zealanders like to follow. I mean, there's a lot. We've got Muslims, and we've got whatever the people that we've got, but most are moderate and tolerant of other religions. But this religion is not tolerant. They want to exclude, not include, exclude. And this is the whole decolonization movement is coming from these people. So that's all I've got to say today. It's almost been 1 hour. So it's a long video, but I'm just telling you, I want all of you to think very, very, very carefully. Remember the Fabian Society, the wolf in sheep's clothing. And you really must remember, all you Muslims out there, remember about the wolf in sheep's clothing is a symbol used by the Fabian Society that shows how they infiltrate the Muslim societies. So think about that, Muslims, when you go to vote tomorrow. Here is your wolf in sheep's clothing, exposed to the world, finally. And here is the Bible that's in our parliament. I bet it's sat nicely. She was given 2 books of Mormon to tell about her history, and she dates back hundreds of years, I'm telling you. Have a nice day. Next, next week I'm going to do a video about all the foreigners. I was going to do it this week. But anyway, share it around. And remember, just make a little note now, you vote for anyone, and I don't support parties, and I don't know who you're going to vote for. A lot of people are saying just don't vote. But I will say, Winston Peters and his party, every single one of them, all 17 of them, placed their hand on the King James Bible, and they said, "So help me God, I swear allegiance to New Zealand. So help me God, our God of New Zealand, given to us by the Queen." Oh, am I paused? Right, that's it.